I don't even know if this is going to end up being a video, if I'm going to edit it or not, but I figured I'm out here, I'm working. I've gotten this far without recording, but I feel guilty. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. So in the last day of the truck video, you guys know that we've been trying to get the heater working properly so that it switches from the floor to the vent to defrost. And that's when we found out that the original heater core was leaking. There you go. And I said, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to tackle it without interruption, without distractions. And I did that. I got the heater core out of the dash and replaced it. Let's take a look. So here is the heater box, all wiped down, all cleaned up, all the dust and gum all off of it. And on this side here, we've got our new heater core installed. All the stuff is put back together. All of our flapper doors are working. All of our mechanisms here are working as they should. The doors move here. This door moves here. And when I took it out, I thought, you know, am I going to record taking this heater box out and showing you guys how to do all this stuff? Well, no, I'm not. Why? There's tons of videos on the YouTubes showing how to do this, and I didn't need to make another one. So all I did was struggle a little bit. And now we're just going to simply struggle to get it back in place. I figured you guys could come along for that and watch me struggle installing this heater box back up underneath the dash of the other truck. So I'm going to get the camera set up. We'll start putting things back together, grab a light or two. Hopefully you'll be entertained. So just so we're clear, folks, this video is truly meant to be entertainment. Not necessarily a how-to, but these things here are a bit of a pain in the butt because the dimensions of this box are almost identical to the dimensions of the bottom of your glove box opening to the floor. So, yeah, that light didn't last long, did it? Let's see how long this one lasts. Anyways, we've got 3 studs we got to get stuck through the wall. We got to get a couple things plugged in here along the way. Let's see if we can make it happen. So first thing is, got to get that out of the way, and we've got to get that hose there plugged in. Roll that forward and scoot it up. You don't need that floor mat up there, so you can just kind of pull that down out of the way. And all we got to do really is get the 2 heater hoses through the firewall. Probably won't go through with the caps on. There we go. That's up there. You know what? That went really, really good so far. In order to make sure that that stays, there's only 1 bolt from the inside that goes in through the firewall to hold that in place. So we're going to thread that on there slightly. And we're going to go put the speed nuts on the studs to keep that from falling back. Then we can get everything hooked up inside here. So I thought there would be a little bit more of a struggle than that. Not that I'm disappointed. Let's go get that done. So the 3 studs I was making reference to is that there's 1 right there that this wiring loom hooks to. There's 1 down here in the bottom corner. And then there's 1 way down underneath the box that your hands don't fit. And you've got to use a swivel socket taped up on an angle to kind of get that started. These are the speed nuts I was referring to. So they're just little tin nuts that you got to get started on those studs. So let's do that. Okay, so we've got our single bolt in right here. We've got our hot and cold flapper hooked up here on this cable. It's secured here on this nut. And we've got our vacuum line here that's going to switch that from hot to cold. We've got our 3 speed nuts connecting the studs on the heater box from the outside to the inside. We've got our vacuum reservoir hooked up. Our hoses are there. And at this point, we're ready to start putting some antifreeze back in the truck. And the reason why I want to do the antifreeze now is to put it in there get the truck up to temperature, top up the coolant, make sure everything's where it's supposed to be, and test the heater. Make sure that it's not going to leak on me from the inside or out here at the hoses. We'll get all that done before we button up that interior. That interior is going to be a job in amongst itself. So let's get the antifreeze topped up on this thing and get it up to temperature. Got everything we collected out of it, except for a little tiny bit we messed on the floor. Hopefully we can do this one-handed and not make too much of a mess. Drain cock. Oh, yes, I put that back in. Wouldn't be the first time I left it out. All right, so we've got the coolant topped up on the radiator. Our overflow is filled up to the minimum cold. We feel like we've got fluid in the hoses and all that stuff. Batteries connected. Now we're gonna start Dale the truck for the first time. Probably been well over a month, so should start right up though. Fuel injection shouldn't be any problems. We're gonna back them out a little bit outside the door so we don't gas ourselves out in here. The temperature's starting to come up. We've got our dial set to heat, and we are getting some heat starting to come through that heater core. But we still need that thermostat to open up so we can get that warmer coolant running through the system. So with Dale getting up the temperature, thermostat opening up, there's no leaks anywhere. The two hose clamps going into the heater box are holding tight, and underneath the heater box there is no leaks there, and it's blowing all kinds of heat. We've got that problem fixed. The problem that we're still having though is the inability to switch our vents from the defrost from the dash to the defrost or the floor. Right now it seems to be stuck halfway between the floor and defrost, so you don't get that full force of air on you if it's coming out of the vents, and you can't switch it to the defrost. I'm gonna have to do a little bit more research to figure out how that whole system works. I know it's all vacuum lines and only one cable, and the cable controls the switching of the heat to AC. That does work. So we get heat when we want it, we get AC when we want it. Other than that, I don't know what's going on. I can't seem to get it to switch. So gonna go do some research, make a few phone calls to some guys who know this stuff a lot better than I do, and we'll have to see what we can do to determine how to fix it. So believe it or not, I couldn't find a whole lot online, and I may make a separate video on what I actually was able to find out with a little bit of help from Tom over at Mortsky Repair. He basically asked me if I checked a couple of things, which I had, and you know, this is what I found so far. I'm going to reiterate what I found in the previous video that I talked about this a little bit. This right here is my vacuum source line. It plugs into the reservoir. I currently have my vacuum pump hooked up to it, and it's holding vacuum. Which before it was holding vacuum as well, but I couldn't get it to switch anything inside, so I don't know if I didn't have enough vacuum on it, or I don't know. Right now, I've got this switched to heater, which means air should be coming out the bottom here. If I push it back to defrost, then that little flapper door right there should drop down. So let's see what happens. Wow, it does. Why it's never done that before? So if I go back to vent, it releases. And if I go, actually that was a heater, sorry, so that's back on the floor. If I go to vent, this should open. Well, what the frig? Jeez, that never did that before. So what that tells me is my vacuum source probably isn't pulling enough vacuum. Now, does that mean it's ported or manifold vacuum? I'm thinking it's got to be manifold vacuum. So let's go see if we can find a better source of vacuum to get this pulling on that. And by now, I'm sure that most of you guys are screaming at me or laughing at me or whatever. Head into the comments about where I should be getting my vacuum. You got to remember, I'm running a Phytech, so there's only really three sources to get vacuum from. One is for your vacuum advance, which is your ported vacuum. And then there's two bigger vacuums on the back. One's going to my PCV, the other one's going to the brake booster. And the brake booster is this big line here. It goes into a metal line, which looks like it's about 3/8. Or we can tap into the PCV line, and that's exactly what we're gonna do, because this unit, because it's a vacuum, is going to be sucking from the engine into the unit. It will also be sucking or drawing from this vacuum line here. So there won't be any oil or anything going into this system. So I did manage to track down a T, so we've teed into the PCV, and then we've teed off that again to run over here to this vacuum reservoir for the heater controls, and then another one that goes over to the switch that switches on my overdrive. So now that we've got that done, we can go inside, start the truck, and see if our heater controls are actually going to work. All right, so we're inside the truck. We're getting ready to start it up. I've got my mag rag, which I'm going to use to see where the air is blowing, so you guys can see it. I can feel it with my hands, but you guys can't. So if you guys don't know what a mag rag is, it's a red shop rag that has a magnet built into it. It's sewn right into the corner, so that when you're using your rag, you can just kind of stick it somewhere where you're working. It's always going to be there. You don't have to go searching for it or digging through your pockets, stuff like that. If you want a link to mag rag, I'm going to leave one down in the description box below. Make sure you check them out. Pretty cool stuff. Anyways, let's get the truck started and get that heater blowing. All right, so we got the truck running and we've got the heater on, or the AC on max, and we're getting full pressure out of the dash here right now. There's nothing coming out up top, and there's nothing coming out down here on the bottom. So if we actually switch this all the way over to defrost, the vent actually shuts off here, and I can actually feel the vacuum starting to pull on that switch down there, and we're actually getting a little bit of vacuum. You can't see it with the rag, I guess, but you'll have to trust me that we're getting some air coming up through the defroster now, which is a super bonus because I will be driving this in cold weather, and we will be needing to keep that windshield defrosted. So at this point, I'm pretty happy that we fixed this problem. All it took was a couple of vacuum tees. So, hey, if that's all it takes, we figured that out once we realized that we actually had vacuum being held at the reservoirs. So the biggest thing to keep in mind here is that just when you think you've got something and you don't quit. Keep trying. I did reach out to Mortsky at Mortsky Repair. I'm sure you guys all know who he is. He asked me if I checked a few things, and I said, well, yes, I did check it. But when I checked it the second time after he had mentioned it again, I said, well, I'll check it again, because, maybe I didn't do it right the first time. But when I hooked the vacuum gauge up to that reservoir and pumped it up, it held. And when I went inside, I moved the slider, the vacuum switch, to select to the defrost, and those doors, those vacuum actuated doors, moved. So maybe I wasn't getting a good connection here. I was losing vacuum there at some point, but that told me I was getting vacuum all the way inside. I had to figure out why I wasn't getting it to the reservoir. Anyways, figured it all out. Thanks, Tom, for that. At the very least, a bit of motivation to try again and to check it and realize that that's exactly what it was. We had the vacuum hooked up to the wrong source. So long story short, keep at it. Keep at your work, because just because you can't figure it out doesn't mean you should give up. Otherwise, we wouldn't have projects. Case in point. Anyways, we will have some more progress going on the Yugo this coming weekend. So by the time you guys are watching this, it will be Canadian Thanksgiving weekend. It's a long weekend for us. And we close up our camper. We spend almost every weekend at the camper. So that takes away from my time working on projects like Dale the Truck and the Yugo. So we'll be back to work on those projects once we close up the camper. And so you'll start seeing some more Yugo videos coming very, very soon. And we're so close. If we haven't hit it yet, by the time you guys are watching this video, please subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. We're so close to 20,000 subscribers. I'm going to be doing a giveaway once we get there. I'm not sure what it's going to be yet. Maybe it's a t-shirt. Maybe it's some swag from somewhere else. I don't know. We'll make sure that we get something out there for celebrating 20,000 subscribers, and then we're going to be doing something very, very big again once we hit 100,000, because I'm shooting for that goal, guys. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Thanks for sticking on this long. Stay focused on the windshield, not the rearview mirror. I love you guys. God bless. Let's do it again real soon.